Hello. Yeah, that's it.
Hello, everyone.
Oh my God, I think I really had too much coffee. Hi, guys. How
Welcome to Money Mondays with your hosts, Kalisha and Betzy.
Yeah, I'm
You
so
guys,
excited for today. How you feeling?
I'm excited. I just get excited every time we're in here, bringing value to people, teaching these things. We learn what we teach. So
And
we
like,
love talking about how we do what we do.
mhm. And our two guests is gonna be like fantastic. It's gonna be so much fun having this conversation with them. But
Hmm.
before we even dive in, like, let's see, how was your weekend? Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, I had a wonderful weekend since I had been gone so long for my kids, like 2 weekends in a row. It was really nice to get back and just spend some time with them. Um, a really big, important thing that I believe in very strongly is that also Keston talks about, Keston Glasgow, about, you work so hard and then you're doing it for your family, but you're also not paying attention to your family. So it's very important to find that balance.
Mhm.
So yeah, I had a great weekend with them. We celebrated Earth Day. We did a few things with some friends. It was fun. How about yours?
Man, like, it was a little bit stressed, but we made it happen because I think whenever we have like properties like these that needs to be funded and we're strapped for a timeline, I think we get so stressed. Well, I get so stressed because I'm like, okay, we need to meet this deadline and
I
get it
know.
done. So with ordeals that we have now, I think it's just trying to the time crunch. So just trying to find time, having lenders being backing out last minute, which happens.
We've been having that a couple. It happened all together in 1 week. It was
Exactly. And then you have weeks where we just get this funded back to back, no issues with ease. And it's really just a part of the process. You
yeah,
have good days, you have bad days. It's really, really about it. But no, but we got this.
yeah.
We do got this. Man, I had too much coffee. I'm too hyperactive. I feel like a kid. But without further ado, you guys, oh my God, we are gonna welcome Aide and Joseph to the screen. Hi guys,
Hello.
Hello.
how are you guys doing?
Beautiful.
Outstanding.
I know, look at Joseph's face. He's like, I'm just so excited.
I want
Thank
some of
you,
that
but I
coffee.
saw your video that you posted. I loved it. I loved your video.
He should do marketing.
Well, we're gonna be talking about auction properties, right? That video was taken at a property that we bought at the auction.
What?
I'll
Wow,
discuss that more in a little bit. Yeah.
Oh my
I'm
God.
excited.
No,
Oh my gosh, let's get into it.
I definitely want to hear. But guys, before we even dive in, Betsy gets on my not I wouldn't say get on my nerves, but she reminds me a lot about this that we need to say. What's our disclaimer, Betsy?
The following information is for educational purposes only. Please do your own diligence. We do not provide financial, legal, or professional advice. We show you guys what we do, what we learned, and our experiences, but we're not professionals. So we also we want to make sure always that you guys know this. Please, we always tell you, hey, this is what we know, but seek people. We do guide you to people that we know too. We have people that we go and talk to if we have questions. You know, we're not we're not certified.
Not certified. Just sharing our experience. That's it, you guys. And also don't forget, you guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, just to subscribe to our channel. And later, when you're listening to this on any podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, don't remember to like us, leave us a review. That's how we get bumped up to the top. So leave us a review, you guys. Let us know what you think, what you want to hear, and let's dive in. Tell us, who is Joseph and Ida? Like, give us all the tea.
Would you like to start, Ide?
Sure. I'll start. Well, my name's Aide Espinoza. I'm a full-time real estate investor, officially as of October of last year. I started, yay! I left my W-2 job and I'm officially full-time. I started investing as a private money lender with actually Joseph. I was his private money lender. I've known Joseph for a very long time. We're childhood friends, and I've seen how he's scaled up. And then at the end, this past couple of years, I was like, you know what? I need to get out of this rat race. I don't want to be stuck in a corporate America. Yeah, it's secure. You have all the benefits that your parents teach you about, but I don't have the freedom. I don't have the freedom. I'm on my boss's time, and being a real estate investor, I have my own time. I have more time on my hands. I have more time to spend with my family, and I'm living the life on my terms, not under my employer's terms.
Yeah.
And so I had to get off that closed mindset and say, you know, what do I need to do to scale the capital that I currently have so that I can get out this rat race? And the perfect person was, I knew Joseph. I trusted Joseph. I saw what he was doing. You know, he was, buying holds. He was buying multi properties in different counties in LA. I was privileged to see how he would buy and hold and flip and all that beautiful stuff that now I'm involved in. And I was like, you know what? I want to be part of that. Yeah. And I did ask him. And so I ended up being his private money lender. And that's how my journey started. And I ended up knowing and having the privilege of being able to see the properties, being able to see what the rehabs were, if there was anything going on with the property. I was privileged to all of that, from the moment that he purchased the property to when he put it on the market. And I was also able to then obviously get my percentage of whatever my return was for investing in that project, and kind of just doing another cycle with him. And hey, I already have this capital. I'm still working, make my money grow. And that kind of just kept on revolving from one property, for me being able to acquire rentals to be able, obviously, to be where I'm at now, and now not be at the rat race. Now we've ventured off, and we've already acquired multiple assets, real estate, rentals, multifamily in different states. And because of real estate, I was able to leave my government job. And now I have full-time doing this, boots on the ground, and I love it. I'm on my own time. We have acquired, like I said, multiple rentals, flips, and then we've also been invested in multifamily. So I love my new career, because like I said, I have the freedom. I'm living on my terms, not anybody's terms. Yeah. And I have the time to spend with my kids. Like Betzy says, you do it, you sacrifice yourself because you're doing it with an all-time goal to spend time more with your kids and your family and your loved ones. And you don't get that in corporate America. But you have to be willing and open to think out of the box. Yeah. And the only way you're going to be willing and open to think out of the box, if you start surrounding yourself around like-minded people that see that, okay, well, what is my goal? What is my freedom number? What do I need to do to be here? And if you surround yourself around like-minded people, then you're able to not only grow yourself, but learn from one another and collaborate and make your goals and dreams come true fruition faster. And so I've been very privileged with Joseph being my mentor, and also being mentored by other people, and also having the opportunity to be around like-minded people. And I love it. And I wouldn't change it.
I mean, but I think I was telling Betzy, wait, go ahead, Betzy.
Finish your thought.
No, I was saying, like, I was telling Betzy when I first met you guys in person, and just hearing the story, I was mind blown. Yeah. I remember, like, Ida was like, okay, Joseph, I'm gonna retire in 2 years. 2 years, and she didn't retire. She's like, give me 3 more years, and she still didn't retire. So to hear it now, like, it's amazing.
Yeah, I heard a little bit on the last weekend, but what Kalisha tells me sometimes, I'm just like, I need to hear the whole story, because it sounds really, really interesting.
Okay.
Now, you said you got your foot in the door by being a private money lender. Well, how would you recommend people that are in that position, like you were, in a really good W-2 job, where they have some funds that they want to use to start investing and to become an investor ultimately?
Obviously, do contact a CPA, so that you can get legal representation in regards to what your best avenue would be. Um, Depending on whatever entity you work with, you may have the ability to get a personal loan from your current employer. And obviously, the benefit about with that is that not only are you getting a personal loan, different depending on the entity, you're able to earn the interest back to your own account. But if you're going to be able to pull that, say, for example, $50,000, and you're going to be a private money lender, that private money lender normally gives you double-digit returns depending on the agreement that you guys come up with. So not only are you getting double-digit returns, but you're also getting 3% from the entity, so you can always repay it within 3 to 5 years. But you have control over your money, not the stock market, not Bitcoin, not anything out there. Like, you have that control to know where you're going to move your money to and how you're going to make it scale up for you.
That makes sense. And Joseph, so like, what I want you to share is like how did you, like, first of all, introduce yourself, but how did you get Ida to be your private money lender?
Well, my background is in real estate. I've been in real estate since 1995, and prior to that, I did have a corporate job with Bank of America, and I worked in the real estate loan servicing department, and I got to see exactly what happens after a realtor hands somebody their keys. All the things that were going behind the scenes, the tax department, the insurance, and all of the adjustable rate mortgages changes, and then the fixed rate products, and then legal, and all these different fundamentals of servicing, like that, as a consumer, if you have a home, you may be buying a property with Wells Fargo, and then a couple of years later, you're making a mortgage payment to someone else. And so how the secondary market sells the paper, and all these things are going on behind the scenes. I learned deed of trusts. I studied notes. It was all part of my job. And it was nice to be able to get involved. But at that time, I didn't know I was going to go into real estate. It was just a job to me. But I was fascinated by it. And there was a gentleman in our office that eventually would become a real estate salesperson. He would share with me his escapades. And I thought, I was very fascinated with it. I thought, you get paid to help somebody get a home? Like, that's a career. And so I actually ventured into it, and I quit my job. It was like May 17th, 1995. And and I'm sure that Idea will share with you. You just kind of live with that date, because that was the date you kind of mentally and physically made that separation. And you're about to embark in something that's so completely unknown, and you're excited, but you're scared, and you're going through all these different emotions. And I went through that a very long time ago. So when I got into real estate, I became a real estate salesperson. I was doing your typical real estate responsibilities. I was helping buyers and sellers sell homes and buy homes. And I would always try to get a little bit more information from the loan officers as to how I could put a deal together. And eventually I would meet a processor, and that person was giving me all the ins and outs as a processor. So I started to learn a lot more fascinating details. Eventually I would learn who and what an underwriter was. And then I would make it a point to meet underwriters. And I would always make it a point to meet underwriters outside of the work load. They were going to a conference, they were going to a meetup, if they were in any kind of social circle, I just wanted to get close enough to say, hey, how do you piece this kind of scenario together? And how would you look at this particular aspect of your business? Yeah. What I'm trying to do is just make myself a better real estate agent. And then you meet people you gravitate to, and it's like now you're in that circle, and then you meet loan officers, processors, you meet other people that are involved, everything from underwriting to the brokers that own the company. And you start learning all these things that go on behind the scenes. And that actually makes you a better investor, a better realtor. If you're a wholesaler, it makes you a better wholesaler because you understand finance. So with that said, after a while, I became a real estate broker myself, and I had some people gravitate to me that eventually we all had a real estate company. And my background, and I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. So we started in Los Angeles, California, and we did really well there. But there was something that I learned right after Robert Kiyosaki's book, Robert Kiyosaki's initial book, not Real Estate Riches, I'm sorry, the Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? There's a whole series. And it's a very fundamental book because it teaches you just why and how to invest. It's giving you certain fundamentals. Then you have to pick up other pieces based on what excites you. So I read The Real Estate Riches by Dolph D. Roos, which was an excellent book. It compares real estate investing to stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and other asset classes. And it was always kind of showing like, this is why real estate's good. So I always knew that it was really good. But as a salesperson, I was just trying to get a commission check. So I just wanted to help somebody get into a home so I can get paid. And if I could learn a little bit about the process and enjoy what I was doing, then I wasn't really working. I was just kind of helping people and get a paycheck. And that went on for years. Eventually, I was that guy that was wearing the Armani suit, driving the Mercedes Benz, and I'd go pick up my customer that like worked at Target. And I was like, okay, there's a disconnect there, because eventually I would take the role of representing investors. And investors are interesting people because they're wearing like shorts and a t-shirt and mismatched socks. They haven't showered. They don't comb their hair. They have a hat on. They're driving a 20-year-old pickup truck, and they're worth $2, $3, $4, $5 million.
Yeah.
So my first experience with representing a real estate investor, I remember he said, okay, this is what I'm looking for. If you can find it, give me a call. And I put him into contact with the property. It's like, this is a good deal. And this is why. And he wanted me to write up an offer. And this is as my experience as a real estate agent. So I was just a real estate agent. I did have a license as a broker. So I was a licensed real estate broker. And we're going to write up this offer. And the listing agent says, well, I need you to give me proof of funds if you're going to write up a cash offer. It's like, okay, how do you do proof of funds? Normally, I would call my loan officer and say, hey, give me a pre-qual. So I remember calling him and saying, hey, I need some information on your, I guess, bank statement or something. I almost felt bad asking because I thought it was like privileged information. But he said, yeah, come over. Because, this is before internet. I'm dating myself here. But he ends up sending over, we end up meeting for coffee, and he ends up giving me the originals to a bank statements that had over $2 million. And this was like 1997. It was a phenomenal amount of money back then. It's awesome today. But back then, it's probably 10 times what it was. But I realized that everything that I thought I knew was incorrect. Mm-hmm. Everybody that I thought was well off wasn't. And people that you kind of just didn't think were well off were either emotionally happy, they were physically rewarded, or they were also financially and spiritually blessed. So it started shifting my mindset, and I started eventually making it over to representing investors. It was completely different. They were buying houses based on numbers, non-emotional purchases. And, you fast forward 20 years later, and then I'm the guy that, I took a shower for your live stream.
How did you transition though? Like from a guy with a suit to...
I got my pickup truck right there. It's like 300,000 miles, and that's what I normally drive. I've got the Mercedes still, and I've got all these other tools and toys. Yeah. But the reality is that I dress down for work. I don't need to be it's a different environment when you're in the service industry. Yeah. So, but coming from LA County, I started to learn a little bit of the leverage principles. And I realized that if we went into other counties, and for people that are not from Los Angeles or the California market, they might not recognize it, but like San Bernardino County, Riverside County, these are counties that you can get much more bang for your buck as far as being a homeowner, as far as being a investor. So we were going to areas where investors were buying homes for $25,000, $35,000, $55,000, which seems unheard of today. Mm-hmm. But those homes today are worth $500,000. And mm-hmm. We were buying many of them, fixing them up. Some of my investors were buying houses and renting them. Some houses were being flipped for profit. So I really was embedded, and I learned all of the facets of what they were doing by just watching and representing them. I wasn't even asking questions because at that time I hadn't made the decision to become an investor. And you would think that I would, right?
You would.
so assimilated in that environment, and I was really happy representing people. I kind of realized that one of the things that I have, and to this day, is I really like investor relations and I really enjoy underwriting and analysis. And when you start looking at all of the tools and information that we have available today, it's almost too much information. You're bombarded with everything that's available at a moment's notice. And in reality, if you just step into the fundamentals, it's about relationships and people and connecting with individuals that can give you some ideas of a collaborative nature. And then eventually, you're not having to beat yourself up to get deals. Deals are coming to you because people want to help you and they gravitate to you. So our last two deals that Aide and I are part of came from our property manager, and they knew what to do, the betterment that we're doing for the community by improving the area when we're renting out these properties, and they were not listed for sale. They came to us and said, hey, we need someone to take these down as an investor, either all cash or hard money or private money, whatever you do, but I know you're going to close. And so it was really neat to be a part of that. Prior to that, though, our other two properties were auction properties, so we'll talk about and discuss those as well.
I'm excited to hear about
I know, I'm so excited.
And so, like, just to finish up on that part, what ended up happening is using leverage. We went from LA to San Bernardino and Riverside County, and then eventually I would relocate to Kern County, which is Central California. Oil and gas and agriculture are the biggest economies there. And this was an area right around 2009, 2010, where you could buy a beautiful home on the west side for like $150,000, which again now seems unheard of because properties at last myself checking were $450,000, $550,000, which is still cheaper than LA. But we were leveraging bank money, private money, and whatever capital we had to buy more properties. And I think that there's some things that I'll share as well, like, doing flips, should you flip a property, should you hold a property? And I have, experience with both. And we also wholesaled and we also property managed, and we did a variety of different things.
I didn't even know that you guys wholesale, that's amazing.
Yeah, we've most recently, I think we wholesaled one property last year. And it was because we now live in Texas. We've
diversification.
What's that? I missed it. What was that?
I said it's diversification.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But,
we
I love it.
made the decision in 2019 to relocate our company outside of California. It wasn't specific to Texas. We saw that it was not a business-friendly state, and it's not a landlord-friendly state. And we moved right before they had statewide rent control in the whole state of California. And it's always been a very highly regulatory and highly taxed state. And we did very well. So I don't want to give the impression that you need to go to a Republican state or a landlord-friendly state or a business-friendly environment to succeed. Yeah. I knew people that were leaving LA and going to Bakersfield that were successful, and I knew people that were going from Bakersfield to LA that were equally successful. But what happens is that as you get a little bit more wiser and you start to develop some fundamentals, you realize that it's not just about making money, but it's about making a difference in addition to whether or not you're even welcomed in that environment. Yeah. So Texas is completely different. So is Tennessee. We have some exposure to Georgia and also to Florida. And there's many other landlord-friendly states. But this is the area that we've kind of decided that we were going to come and venture to.
Man, I love the landlord-friendly states.
Yes.
Really?
Easy.
Yeah.
It's so easy. And I think it has a lot to do with what is your exit as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
That has a lot to do with, like, a fix and flipper would, if you're going to fix and flip, then some counties in California will be fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah, the numbers in California are great if you're going to flip.
But it just depends what your exit is, which even makes me, like, after you transition from California to Texas, one, apart from California being a not so business friendly, what were some of the reasons that made you gravitate towards Texas and then expanded into newer markets as well?
That's a very good question. And, when I was working in investing in California, and let's say I was going to do a flip, I wasn't looking at the geography so much. I wasn't looking at the demographics as much. I wasn't looking to see if there was any large scale companies that were coming in that were going to be bringing in workers. And was there going to be a new hospital opening or an expansion project? Or how about like maybe something like a warehouse? Like now we hear Amazon distribution centers opening up, and they bring an influx of direct and indirect jobs for the community. But
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be Amazon. It could be any warehouse. And so we weren't looking at all that because you're in and you're out, right? But what happened was that as you start to keep rentals and you start to hold on to that passive income so that you can actually pay your bills, and then eventually, you're making 300 here, 400 on that one, 600 on that one, then eventually you have $4,000 a month, and that's an actual salary. And I'm talking net after expenses. At some point in time, it makes it easier to make that choice to say, okay, well, I have enough to support myself. I'm going to go ahead and exit my W-2 job, kind of like what we prepared for Aide to do last year. And other people that kind of say, well, I'm going to do an Airbnb, I'm going to do a multifamily investment, I'm going to do a variety of different things. So when we started to hold properties longer, like 5 years, one of the first things that we were doing now is we were looking at states that had that were definitely business friendly and landlord friendly, but also that there was jobs there. And then what was the pay for that demographic? Because if you've got a average income of $25,000 and you're coming in with a $1,200 rental, you are not going to statistically be able to increase those rents because the pool of the people that live there can afford that area.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it a bad area to invest. It just depends on what you're looking for. But we were looking to be able to increase rents as needed, whether it was annually or every 2, 3, 4 years, because especially if you were doing a long-term hold, 5 years, 10 years out, for example. And so we found that there were certain large metropolitan areas like Dallas, Fort Worth, your Houston, your Austin.
There's some hot markets right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Sun Belt states, and so and then we saw the same in Tennessee, Nashville, Knoxville, and so we have a little bit of a different pattern than some of the investors follow, and some people, and everybody has their own opinion, and I certainly don't want to say mine is better, but I know that what has worked for us has been that we have been generally looking for areas where there is path of progress and where we're going to cash flow today, not later, where we're going to buy a property for significantly less and we're going to make money on the acquisition, not upon the resale. Any money that we get on the resale is just, dessert.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're looking for is we want to go through areas that are going to be or are experiencing gentrification.
Yeah.
And so there is an expansion of a city like Dallas where all of a sudden people can't afford Dallas anymore. And what do? They move out. And what if you were in that area and you had that as a rental 3, 4 years ago when it was $210,000, and now 3 years later it's worth $500,000? You were cash flowing when you bought it 3 years ago. Not only are you still cash flowing, but now you've added $200,000-$300,000 in net worth, in equity. And what if you had 10 properties? You could define a path where 5 properties at $200,000-$300,000 in net equity over the course of 5 years will instantly putting you in the millionaire or multi-million-dollar status. Yeah. The other thing was, what do you do with that money? It's like, okay, I'm going to invest. I'm going to take a rental. What am I going to do with it? Am I just going to hold it on forever? Is it going to be a legacy property that gets passed on to the children? What is it that your exit strategy is? And for us, we wanted to, at first, we were just buying houses, fixing them up, holding on for a little while, and then 2, 3 years later, selling them later for something larger. So we'd sell a house, buy a duplex. We'd sell a duplex, buy a fourplex. There was just so many
scaling.
Yeah, man, you gotta scale.
Absolutely. And then we met, we had the opportunity of investing in multifamily. That was a game changer for us because now all of a sudden we're invested in our current investors in many projects here in Texas that are anywhere from $16 million acquisition prices to as high as $78 million. And it was a pool of investors that invested in the form of syndication. and everybody just got together. Kind of think of it as crowdsourcing, and everybody funding this for a larger good as far as buying something bigger. So, when we're investing in these deals, they'll have minimums. Some of those established minimums will change from time to time, or where the project is, or what type of asset it is. It could be a mobile home park, it could be RV, it could be storage, it could be multifamily. But generally speaking, today's times are about $50,000 minimums. So we would take investments from selling a flip that we bought maybe 3 years ago, that we've already gotten our money back through a cash out refinance 3 years ago. And now we're just going through the action of selling the investment so that we can capitalize on the equity and turn it into liquid, and then redeploy that into multifamily.
That's
So,
what came to mind when you were saying that.
What was
Because
that?
he just dropped some gems in terms of when you build equity in the home,
Mm-hmm.
and you guys would resell it in 2 to 3 years. You have persons who have built equity in their home. They can literally pull out a HELOC and also lend if they don't want to sell the property. So
Exactly.
the HELOC can also be another source of funding for a private money lender. So
Or you can do the cash out refi.
or that.
Yeah, in regards to the equity line of credit, and also in regards to like when you buy the property, you fix it, flip it, and then you get your money back. And then kind of like what Joseph said, we came up with a strategy to where we had a few rentals and we had a few flips and we had a few rentals and flips. And within that same time frame, when we did get the capital, we would redeploy it into a multifamily syndication group. And then obviously you would get a negative K1 from that, which benefited me at the time when I first started as a private money lender, because I still had my regular government job and I still had my salary. And I was in the border of like, am I going to have to pay taxes? What am I going to do to offset that rental income? So then we kind of, Joseph helped me calculate like, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is the strategy that we're going to do. And this is what we're going to implement so that you don't have to pay taxes. And it's just like I said, what works for us might not work for somebody else. But since I started my venture as a real estate investor, as of this day, I had not have to pay taxes. I'm negative, way negative.
We're gonna have to do a whole nother episode on
Yeah,
because
That's so much value. Like that's so valuable information to know, because a lot of us are trying to get to that point, where we own a lot of assets. But also people who own a lot of assets also have to know how to
offset the taxes.
offset the tax.
When you
Yeah.
hear the story, how they kind of structure everything, like especially when Joseph is so strategic.
yes.
I'm hearing that.
Keisha, I have 3 different CPAs that I said X to because I need to know what do I need to do to offset X amount of taxes.
Yes.
That is so smart because then you have 3 different opinions.
Yeah, that's very important. It's very important to have a great team of CPAs, and because you tell them what your ultimate goal is, and then the CPA then allows you to say, okay, what did you purchase the property for? And they start doing their numbers, and then they tell you, okay, what do I need to do? And then it kind of just reassures you that your ultimate goal, you're not going to have to pay taxes because you already had that CPA review it. And it's kind of like whenever we would get into another project, especially while I was still employed, it was kind of like, okay, like where am I going to be at? Am I going to be over? Am I going to? And then we would talk to the CPA, and he would always assure me, like, nope, you're doing it right. You guys are following this particular structure, and it's working for you. So at the end of the year, you don't have to worry. Your income is not going to be affected. You're not going to have to pay any taxes. So that even gave me more peace of mind. So it's kind of having the team in play with your CPAs, because if you don't, then some people say like, well, maybe I'm going to have to pay too many taxes. I don't want to even start in that. But if you have the structure, if you have the team, then, why not have control over your own money and not have someone else control your money for you?
Because we tend to do it backwards. We wait until it's tax season.
Right. Yeah.
We wait then to kind of, okay, what do I need to do we're like, no, but what you just said.
But even having a 401k, I mean, it's still being invested. It's just you don't have any control.
Exactly. You don't have any control. And as you know, the market fluctuates. So then you can have a high income right now, tomorrow it could drop. But if it's just sitting there. So if you do end up like in my case, I left my government job, so now I have the privilege to transfer my traditional IRA into a self-directed IRA, which now I have more money to invest, and then I have control as to what projects I want to invest in. I could be a private money lender for whatever other entities I choose to, and I could get that money to grow in less time than what it would be in the stock market the next 30 years, because I still have a long way to go to be able to dip into that money. So why don't I want to scale my money at my terms?
I love that. My money, my terms.
Yeah, it's my money. I worked for it.
Exactly.
And direct as I please with it.
Right?
Obviously following IRS guidelines, but
Well, that's one of the things is that, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So it's not like they teach us FICO in school, and if they taught us FICO in high school, like, would we even really pay attention? Like, that
Yes.
we wouldn't understand how important that is.
Exactly.
And in college, we're so busy, like, going to college and studying and partying, that you're not really paying attention to a lot of the life lessons that you're about to experience. In retrospect, you would have done things different, but in reality, you wouldn't have done things any different. Because if you go back to that point in time and you made that decision, armed with the information you had at that time, you would have made the same choice. What we want to do, though, is empower your listeners and just share with them golden nuggets, things that we have actually been able to employ and what we're doing that's worked for us. And then obviously, additional information can ensue, but it just begins that, okay, you know what, I'm going to learn about this 401k. I didn't know about HELOC. What's a HELOC? How do I invest with this? And then that's kind of a lead into, like, one of the topics of discussion for today is, of course, buying probate property. Buying auction properties. And there is a lot of sources out there. And remember when I was talking about earlier that, like, there's so much information. And I think that sometimes you gravitate to someone that teaches you one aspect. Other times you're looking for different avenues, and then you kind of find one that works for you. Other times you're just studying everything, and you're going to see what you end up actually sticking to. And so I had the luxury of being able to see these investors buy at the public auction. And it was one of the most freaky things that you could do at the beginning, because it's like 35, 55, 55. I mean, you're like, what happened? What property was that? They didn't even say the address. It was some number. What number? Where'd you get that number? How did it? And you're just sitting there going, wow, I'm watching this whole thing and I'm realizing I'm never going to be able to be a part of this. And it's not like that at all. It's just once you start studying it and you understand it and you start practicing, eventually you become really good at it. It's just like riding a bicycle. But I'll give you an example. One of my investor partners, it's a husband and wife team. I love them to death, but they wanted to invest with me and partner with me. And to this day, we have multiple projects across state lines, and I'm very happy for that. But the way we did some mentorship training is we went to a general sales, a general merchandise sales auction, an actual auction where they're gonna auction off a desk or a carpet or maybe a car or something of that nature, something insignificant like a table lamp, to maybe like some fine china. What I then did is like, okay, I want you to pick something that you're willing to buy at a ridiculously low price, something that might be worth $400 that you're willing to buy it for 40. Like, you'd walk out with this for 40. And so they go through the whole motions, you get your number and you're ready to bid, and you start freaking out because by the time you raise your paddle to bid, they're on to the next item because it's that fast.
That is insane.
It is at the beginning, but by going there, you're going to exercise that muscle of being able to understand how to pay attention and look at the cues and watch the psychology of the investors. Eventually, you get so good that you can tell who's a homeowner, who's a seasoned investor, you know how much money they have, and more than likely, you're going to collaborate on a deal. And so these are the things that you can pick up by being at a live auction. Now, in my example of a live auction, so there's people listening from Florida to California here. So the rules might be a little different, in Massachusetts, that they might be in Arizona. But most of the time, properties that someone is not paying the mortgage on eventually will become a foreclosure. And one of the process that goes on behind the scenes, depending on what type of financing they have, will determine how they end up going to foreclosure. So, for example, if it's a FHA loan and a Bank of America lent on it, what will happen is Bank of America has the loan, and they're the ones that are not getting the money to the payments, I should say.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are going to be initiating the foreclosure and taking it all the way to the public auction, where an investor will bid and successfully win if the price is right for both parties. When that happens, if it's an FHA deal, will depend if it's there's conventional, there's VA, and there's also FHA. But at the foreclosure, many times you're buying a property, and as soon as you walk away, you're done. You're the owner as of that particular time. Other times it reverts back to the government.
Normally this amount, like for someone who's completely new with the auction, because they may get a little bit overwhelmed. So when these properties are selling at an auction, is it that it's the mortgage balance that they start the bidding at, or how do they normally start the pricing point for those properties?
It'll vary across the board. Sometimes you'll see that there is a $185,000 outstanding balance, and they'll start the bidding at $35,000. It does not make any sense. Then there's other scenarios where they're owed $185,000 and the starting bid is $210,000. Now, in a case like that, if I knew that the property was $400,000 in value and they started at $210,000, I'm still going to bid on it, right? And that's almost 53 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
But what if that property really was $200,000 and they start at $210,000? It makes no logical sense, but you never know what's going on behind the scenes at the bank and all the fees and everything that's been assessed. And that bank might properly be insured. So when they foreclose on that property, they didn't lose a darn thing. They then file a claim with their private mortgage insurance or whatever entity behind the scenes to recover their funds. Then eventually that property gets listed for sale with a realtor in that area that subsequently becomes a bank-owned property. But now it's either fixed up and being sold at regular price, or it might be sold as is and it's not financeable, and an investor buys that property. And an investor, it could be someone that is a professional, seasoned investor that buys multiple properties, or it could be an investor that simply is not going to live in the property and is buying the property as a rental or to flip. That's an investor as well. It's the same terminology.
Do you have to put like money up front? Like how does someone get into buying auction properties?
So one of the easiest ways to buy an auction property is to buy it online. And there's a couple of reasons why. If you go and if you come with me to a public auction and we're bidding on that property right then and there, whenever you win, you're successfully the winner. You won it for $100,000. You're buying 100% cash right then and there. It's either in the form of cashier's checks or cash or a combination of both.
So
you have to have the capital. You have to have it on hand, and you have to have the checks in different denominations, because it could be over $1, and they're not going to allow you to go to the bank and say, oh, I need to go get. No, you need to have different denominations. So I had the privilege to go to a live auction. That was one of my first things I did after I went to Texas, because I had told Joseph, just like he explained to you, like I'm here like in the cartoons, going up, like doing this little thing, right? And then by the time you bid, everything's gone. So I had the privilege to be in the court steps and see how it works. And different counties do it different things. Like Joseph says, it's either by the address of the property, it's either by the parcel of the property, or however they record it. And whoever is there is the one that has the opportunity to bid. You don't have a little palette. It's either eye gesture, hand gesture, lip gesture, and that's kind of how you get it. And once they say, okay, final call, it's your property. And once they go down the list of additional properties, at the end, you meet with the person who had the property listed. And you're like, okay, what's my total? And you hand them the cashier checks. And that's it. The property's yours. The moment we get the property, we call the insurance company and we insure the property. Because what about if we get the property at 11:02? 11:03 is on fire. First thing we do is we call our insurance company and say, hey, our property, we got this property, ABC, and can you please insure it? And then we get
you guys don't even see these properties.
There are some properties
that we buy. Yeah.
So it goes all over the place. Like sometimes you don't have access to the properties, and sometimes you don't have legal access, meaning that you're not supposed to go, and you end up going anytime. You end up going anyways. Like if it's vacant, it's obviously vacant. You want to peek around in the windows. Like everybody has different, opinions. Different states are different too. States that have gun ownership are probably not states that you want to step on somebody's property, because even the neighbors come out to protect them. And so we'll generally take a look and see if the property is occupied. And if we know it's occupied, then we're either going to send a letter out, or we're going to try out some other form. There's skip tracing companies out there where you can get their information and their phone number for a fee. And, and there's there's a lot of information. There's different things that you can do. But bottom line is, there are a lot of properties that you are able to go and step in and get a good idea, especially if they're maybe properties that were left open or vandalized, and you're going in there and you're like, okay, I know it needs a lot of work, but how much work? If it's $40,000 and this thing's worth $200,000 and I'm comfortable with buying it for 50, 60 cents on the dollar, then I'm going to have a number that is going to be my maximum bid. And that's what I'm going to go to the auction prepared to bid. If my maximum is, let's say, 100,000, I'm not going to show up with 100,000, because what if it ends up selling for 102? For 2,000, I may not want to not bid. So I'm going to go with a little bit more money. And if I go with 110,000, what about the next property? What about the other one? What about the 5 properties that I was looking at that day? And I'd like to see if I can get them all at my price. So you're going prepared, and you might walk in with $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. Or in other areas, like if you were in an Orange County, California, and there was an auction, you're walking in with millions of dollars in cashier's checks, because the price points are higher.
But even with this, what I'm curious about is the money part of it, because if you're getting a private money lender, like most persons are aware that if they give you their money is secured, it's protected by something.
Yeah.
You're going in and you're just bidding. You don't know what you're getting. You have no clue. Like, how do you? So I think maybe this can be like a 2-part question. How do you get that private money lender to be so comfortable with giving you that cash? And how is there any protection? How do you guys structure that?
Well, like we've always been told, like you gotta trust the person. So having a relationship it's key, because it's like you know the person, you know what the person's background, you know their track record, you know what they've been up to. Yeah. So it's like they're not gonna ruin their reputation over a couple of hundreds of dollars just because whatever. There are probabilities, like everything's risky, like you said, everything's risky, but if you know, like, and trust a person, then the transition makes it so much easier. And if you have that relationship with the person and you've already dealt with that investor as a private money lender, then you can scale up and say, okay, well now I have an additional capital. I know you might not have a project right now, but I have this money. And then most of the investors that we know, they know that we go to the auctions, on a monthly basis. So then they'll say, you know what, I have X amount of money here, take it to the auction. And then, but we also obviously have a contract with them what percentage we're going to be paying them. But it all starts with a relationship. They know us, they trust us, and they know our background. And that's where and then word of mouth. It's all word of mouth. Like, hey, you know what? I did this with this investor. I got this return and I got my capital back. And now I'm doing, and it's kind of just going again and again and again.
So in essence, it's telling people what you're doing. Go ahead, Joseph.
Well, so some of the investors that have partnered with us in regards to going to the auction and using, for example, a combination of, let's say, our money and the investor's money. When we've worked with one person or a group of people for a prolonged period of time, at some point in time, we're establishing a new LLC. And this new limited liability company can be formed, in which, let's say, Aide and myself are the general partners running the operations, but our investors are our limited partners, and they're a part of the entity. And so they're actually funding and loaning the entity money, of which they co-own. And so now when we're taking out the cashier's checks to go bid on that property and we're successful, now what will happen is we will actually collateralize that money to that particular property.
So
And
at the beginning, you just use a promissory note, or
it,
just what do
it
you
is
use?
a promissory note, but they're promising it's the LLC that's promising to repay them if it's a loan. Because when you put money into an LLC, if you have an expectation that you're going to get the money back, then it's a loan. If you don't have an expectation that you're going to get the money back because that money is going to be used for operations or for other things inside the LLC, then it's just a capital contribution as a member of the LLC. And that's the actual appropriate terminology. And the only reason I know that is because I do have 3 CPAs and we're asking questions all the time. Many times we're asking the same question to the 3 different people just to see if we get 3 vague answers or 3 specific answers. And we feel more comfortable saying, hey, we've got 3 CPAs that are guiding us in this direction. Now, it might be expensive for a lot of people to start off with 3 CPAs, right? But most all attorneys will give you a half an hour free consultation. And that's at the level of litigation. Can you imagine a CPA?
Freeness.
You can get free advice from a CPA. And once you feel comfortable with a CPA or an enrolled agent, so it's a CPA is a certified, certified public accountant. Then you've got the EA, which is designation, which is a enrolled agent. And then you have tax preparers. And it doesn't mean that you're going to demean someone who doesn't have the EA or a CPA, but who is that clientele for that individual? Many times that clientele is a blue collar worker, not someone that has a business or owns real estate or has the complexities of the real estate environment or entrepreneur. So you're definitely looking for someone that has that information that they could guide. And you're not meeting with them on April 14th. You're actually getting and seeking advice throughout the year, and you're doing proactive consultations, and you're saying, hey, I've got these 5 houses and we're going to sell them. Which one am I going to sell first? In what order? And maybe I have to go from these 3 this tax year and these other 2 next tax year. And so you can take that into account as well. But coming back to your question, that is one form of being able to create an LLC with your partner investor and actually being able to invest in a auction property. There's a couple of other ways too. You can pool funds, like.
Hold 1 second, Joseph. So for those who may feel like this is a lot of information, just to summarize what Joseph is saying, because I understand it, and I was always curious just about the money part. What he's saying is, if you're looking to buy properties using auction and you're worried about the money, to get the money to go to the auction, one way is first you need to let persons know what you're doing, right? You need to also, if you're completely new, find someone who is doing it. So at least they can be your partner in essence. And then if someone has the money, you get an LLC, and that person will be a capital partner. Once you close out on that property, you now collateralize that money and attach it to that same property that you guys purchased at the auction, right?
Yes, unless it was purchased in the LLC, of which now both the members are the owners of it, and then they would have whatever agreement that the LLC has. For example, if you were my investor on a project and I wanted to give you, 12% return, for example, well, you might be 12% owner of the LLC, and I'm 88% owner, and we're going to buy one property and sell it, and subsequently go ahead and disperse the capital in that manner. So that's one way you could do it. And obviously in a scenario like that, when the money comes back, the investor, unless the investor needed access to that capital in a short-term period of time, more than likely that money is available for another investment. So this could be and is a long-term strategy and a long-term acquisition strategy. Of course, selling a property as a flipper has a high taxable event, right? And in some cases, depending on what state you live, you could be paying as high as 38%. But did you know that if you hold it for 1 year or longer and you rent it out, it drops significantly to 15 to 22%. So just by holding it for 1 year. So we navigated from being flippers to wholesalers to then buy and holds. Now, flipping is good though. I'm not saying it's bad. Flipping makes you money and capital for you to continue to do other things. But holding properties will always give you wealth over long periods of time. So
what was the second? Oh, Wow, man, this is so good. I didn't even realize that the time was like.
I know. Hey, for our podcast listeners, I think we only have an hour, so this will be part one.
Yeah,
You guys just tune in. We'll have a part two for our podcast listeners.
yeah. This is too. Joseph, you're gonna talk about pooling funds. I think that was gonna be the next thing that you're gonna touch.
So when you and obviously for someone that's starting off and they're going to do their first investment in real estate, or they're going to go ahead and get a private money lender to invest in real estate, going to the auction is probably not going to be their first deal, right? But you can still buy an auction property, just not live. So what happens is that they've foreclosed on the property. It goes back to the bank. The bank wants to sell this property and get this off of their books. They want to liquidate that debt. But they also know that there might be some looming issues with the property. There might be no roof. There might be safety concerns. There might be a crack in the foundation. And they don't want to knowingly sell this to a homeowner because they're not going to be able to get the financing. And they're not looking for a homeowner who may not have the funds statistically to do the repairs. But an investor or a company or a community LLC or some type of government entity is who they're going to go after and try to sell this. So what they do, and this is why a lot of the public doesn't see these properties on realtor.com or on Zillow, is because they don't show up there, because then it's to the public. But if you knew the websites, you could actually go. Now, there's a lot of websites, and some websites that are good in Arizona are not good in New Mexico. It just depends. But one of the ones that's the most recognizable happens to be auction.com. So I'm going to use them as an example.
Yeah.
So auction.com, you can go in right now and take a look at your county and then just click all of the properties and only looking for the ones that are available online only. They're online auctions only. You're going to go from like 3,000 in a large county of like Los Angeles to like 6.
Yeah.
And those are the 6 that you're going to look at.
I'm doing
and
that.
numbers, you can actually go in and bid. And the cool thing about those is that you bid and you go through an escrow. And you get anywhere from 14 business days to 28 business days, depending on the auction site, and you can actually close. So now you have time to secure your funding with a private money lender. You're going to be able to record a deed of trust in that position, and you're now buying a property significantly less. A lot of people didn't even know about it. And many of the investors that are going to the public auction are not paying attention to the online auction. Especially if when you get really good, you can see which ones are on online on the same day as the live auction. And so then you're bidding on the online auction. All the professional investors are in person at the live auction.
What you just said with Betzy, like, let's do auction.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that. I was like, the numbers are not hard to figure out.
Even now, he's like, you get 14, an average 14 to 29 days. A lot of persons don't know that. Like, they just see auction and they just think, okay, I have to go on. It's the same day. I don't get to see the property. I don't have time to get the money. But like, these are the little things that a lot of persons don't share. And I'm so glad that you guys go into details about it, because I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so it's always very important to raise capital. Never stop raising capital. So if you know different strategies, like start building that partnership with someone, tell them what the benefits are, and then you can form an LLC with that partner. So when you do have either an online auction or a live auction, you know which partner is willing to go venture that direction, as if you don't currently have a flip. So it's always important. So if you already have an existing relationship with someone, but you don't have a project, say, hey, I go to the auctions. Why don't you start working on building your LLC? And then we'll come up with the contract, and at least the LLC is already established. It's already funded. So that way it has a structure. So that way.
Do you have, when you create the LLC and then the money goes into a bank account, you have access to that bank account as well?
Yeah, the partner, and you have access because you've established that partnership. You just, like Joseph said, you either a certain percentage of ownership depending on what you agreed on. So then they fund the LLC account, and then they know that when we go ready to go either on online or on or live auction, the funds are already there. We kind of just call the investor, say, hey, you know what, we're going to do an online auction or we're going to do a live auction. We're looking at these potential properties. This is our research. This is what we figured out we would be able to get it for and what the profit's going to be. But the funds are already there.
See, another gem, you guys. Oh,
Yeah. Are all the auction sites paid?
Well,
good question.
all the auction information by law has to be made available to the public for free. What happens is that when you're looking at all the data online or in person at the courthouse, it can be overwhelming at first. But when you pick a particular county that and many people feel comfortable investing where they live. I don't necessarily think that's a good idea unless you happen to live in a good area that has good deals. But we tend to do that. And so I'm going to just say that if you learn how to invest at a distance and you treated your business that way, then you would create systems so that you're not involved as much, because your time should be with investors and analysis and reaching out to property management companies and creating and bridging relationships with realtors and the people that are in your team, and also having opportunities to talk to your CPA, to talk to an attorney, and to get information and advice so you can become a better real estate entrepreneur. But there are some sites, like in Texas, for example, one of the bigger ones that a lot of investors really enjoy is Roddy's foreclosure service, and it's RODDYS. Roddy's has a subscription that is anywhere from $20 to $100 a month, depending on what county. So like a large county like Dallas is going to give you the highest one. And we live in an area where the counties that we look at, they're about $35, $40 a month. And what happens though is I'm buying time. I just go on, I log in, I see pictures, I see the data, I see the information, I know the names, the banks, the dates, and even the times that they're going to be auctioned off at. Because it's a set time. It can't be no less than 10 a.m. or no later than 2 p.m. And so you can comfortably legally show up at that time, and they're not going to have gotten there at 8 o'clock. But you might have another auction that was at a different time spot. And then sometimes there's two different auctions at the same day. And of course, in Texas, it's once every month that they have an auction. It's the first Tuesday of the month. So it just happened this Tuesday, and they call it Super Tuesday. If you're in states like California, for example, there's auctions going on any day, any county throughout the state. It's just whenever the trustee has filed and puts it on the log to auction. So, you might go on a Tuesday and there's 5 houses for sale and there's 3 the next day. And so in times of crunch, when there's a lot of properties, there might be 50 properties in a large county or in one city. But like in other counties, there might be only 4 in the whole county. So it just again depends. Now I am seeing less properties on the auction block right now, which is contrary to all the information at the media and the recession, everything you hear. And I don't listen to that. I pay attention to the data because I'm studying the information. It's dictating what direction I'm going to go. So
someone asked, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat so we can have Joseph and Ida respond to them. We had Sophia ask, as a new investor, how can they work with you guys?
Well, you can follow us online. Our Instagram handle is our name. And we do that on purpose because many times that can cultivate into additional relationships. If somebody DMs me a quick question I can answer, if somebody wants a phone call, I'm more than glad to talk to someone and share with them some information and point them in the right direction. And many times it's just a quick question that can be answered right away. And then sometimes they want a little bit more in-depth information or even how to work with us or the team, and we'd be more than glad to assist them.
Man, I just want to say
yeah, we can schedule a Calendly meeting and kind of do that with whoever is interested. And we can do a virtual meeting, just like we're doing this now virtually. Like we can do a virtual meeting and we can share our process or what's worked for us and what maybe we can help you reach your goal.
For those who are just joining in as well, we're actually just talking about how Joseph and Ida are buying auction properties using private money. They've been dropping a lot of gems on this episode. We have Sophia asks as well, do you buy occupied or vacant properties only?
Well,
Both.
we buy both, but the occupied properties, we're going to attempt to buy them at a much lower price point because along with it comes some level of uncertainty as to the repairs needed. And also, we may encounter scenarios in which we have to evict. Now, there are situations where we would love to have bought a property where maybe the owner lost it and the tenant was paying rent and they didn't know it was going to foreclosure. And we bought it and introduced ourselves and we said, hey, we're going to turn this into a rental. Are you interested in continuing your rent? That would be the ideal scenario for both the tenant and our company because it's less, we just have to take care of health and safety. I can tell you statistically, since 2009, that's never happened. So usually you have somebody in there that will need an eviction or they need some assistance. We may have to help them financially move them out. And but that would be the ideal situation, especially if we were trying to find a property to continue as a rental.
Yeah.
But
that's why it's key to invest in landlord-friendly states because the process is much quicker as opposed to in California. It takes a long time. So that's why we decided, like Joseph said, we decided to just move our acquisition company to a landlord-friendly, state so that we can make the whole process much faster.
Shout
Because
out
you
to,
want to make your money work for you, faster.
shout out to Rich. He's also a part of the mastermind that we're a part of with Joseph and Aide. Hi, Rich.
Hi, Rich.
It was so good meeting you, Rich, last weekend.
Oh my God, that's just sad. But before we even wrap up, like, what advice would you guys give to any newbie who either want to start investing or a new private money lender who's looking to lend on their first deal? What advice do you guys have for them?
okay, you want to start, Aide?
Sure. Get out of your comfort zone. Think outside the box, which it's hard. I understand. I come from a Mexican background. You're embedded these traditions. Like you need to be in a secure job that has insurance, all the securities in the world, but they don't tell you that you're stuck there. You don't have the freedom. You don't have the freedom to spend the time with your family. You're on their terms, not your terms. So get out of that mindset. And it's hard. But once you start surrounding yourself with people who have an ultimate goal to get that freedom to be able to live that lifestyle and not be 62 years old and then only have 15 more years to enjoy your life and drive a Corvette at 67 years old. No, you want to start driving the Corvette right now.
And get your investment property to pay for it.
Exactly. And get your investment property to pay for it. So it's kind of like, you work your money. Don't let anybody else manage your money. You've worked for it so hard. You manage your money. You work for it. And just think of the ultimate goal. Yes, it's different. Yes, it's out of the box. It's not something that you're used to. I felt like, oh my God, like, how am I going to make this work? But I had an existing relationship. I knew, liked, and trust, and I knew it was working. So I went for it.
So for your listeners, Aide and I are in a relationship, and we have been. But the story is, I've known her since she was 6 years old, and so we've been lifelong friends. And she's kind of followed me, 4 years old, and she's followed me. She's followed my progress. So it was kind of, I'm sure on her end, as she'll share with you, it was easy to see what I was doing and how I grew. But to add to your question, I've made more money with partners than I ever would have by myself. So I'm a firm believer on partnerships. I love collaborations. I have been in properties and projects where I'm only 2% owner. I am currently a 2% owner of a $78 million project right now that I would not have been a part of if I tried to buy this by myself. So I'm also in a variety of partners where I'm a 10% owner, and I have other projects where I'm 90% completely reverse. And then I have many properties where I are 100% of a variety of different projects. What has happened though is that you get to scale with the team, and with the teams that I have had in the past and the partnerships that I have had in the past, And that almost seems like we don't have them now. It's just that we've gone in different ways because of states or projects or multifamily, for example. What happened is that we didn't have 5 or 6 people that all had the same skill set. So we had like maybe one was really good at digital marketing and one was good with litigation avoidance and someone else was really good at analysis and someone else was really good with raising capital, and you had a awesome team there. And I'll take 25% of $1 million coming in every year, then 100% of $50,000. So if you look at it that way, you want to get out there. And the other thing is that at the beginning, start off and don't try to make any money. Don't try to make any money. If I go back and work with a contractor, it's like, hey, I have a good deal. Can you be the guy that just fixes it and put the money in everything? I don't need to make any money. I just want to watch and learn and absorb what you're doing so I become a better investor. And I'm not going to walk away with any money. I would do that 5, 6, 7 times because you're going to learn so much in those deals. And I see a lot of people try to do everything by themselves, and many are successful. Many are burnt out by the first deal. It takes a lot of tenacity when you're by yourself because you have 100% of the weight on your shoulders. So I would definitely say to partner. And if you're a private money lender and you're going to invest in a project, the top 3 things is you want to know, like, and trust the individual. And so how are you getting that referral? Are you getting that referral for that deal or that transaction or that investment from someone that you like, like and trust? Or are you directly investing with that individual? And what are you investing in? It's very important that someone understand what they're investing in and what the strategy is. Well, we're going to buy it and we're going to fix it and we're going to sell it. Okay, that's pretty simple, but who's going to fix it? Like, who's going to actually monitor that? And how are you going to sell it? And have you decided who the agent is? When you get like, well, I don't know, we'll figure it out, but it's going to be easy. Don't worry about it. Well, that's not a deal that you want to get invested in. And as you gain momentum, you can start deciding exactly what you want and how you want to invest. Like, we have a certain buy box of things that we'll invest and we'll partner with. And if somebody says, hey, I got a great deal out in California, I'm like, good for you, but I'm not going to invest. That doesn't mean I won't find someone that'll be the perfect partner for them that's comfortable with a democratic controlled, highly regulated, high overtaxed state. But there's other avenues, right? And so like you're out in Florida, Talisha, and that is a very good state to invest in. But there are certain things about Florida that I don't understand. For example, the flood zones and the floodplains and hurricanes.
They're getting worse, actually.
Yeah. So if I'm uncomfortable with that, then I might choose to pick a different state like Georgia or Tennessee. But if I still want to learn more about Florida, what if my research tells me that, things are really expensive, but you're buying at 20, 30 cents on the dollar at the auction? Well, I'm going to pay attention to that. Maybe it's not going to be a long-term hold, but it's great to flip, or maybe there's a great operator that can do a short-term rental. And what if you could go buy it, fix it up, and go to the bank and get your money back? And now you don't actually have any money, but you own the property. I don't care if I own 10% of a property in Bel Air. It's just how you think about it.
So, and if you give yourself the opportunity, and you do find someone that you want to partner up with and be their private money lender, you can also make the time to schedule, like, oh, I want to shadow you. I want to see what your day's like. Kind of like, what do you do? And that's another way to give that potential private money lender that's kind of skeptical, kind of like, okay, what are they really doing? Like, they can shadow you, but it would be something that you would have to, coordinate with one another. I think that would be another way so that they can have that peace of mind also. Depends on the person.
It all goes back to that mindset, that wanting to learn.
That's very key.
Man, but you guys dropped so much gems today. We have to.
Now we're excited about buying on auction. Look at us.
It was
give us a call. We're glad to help you.
There's so many things that we can dive deeper into, like just from the perspective of you guys lending to each other's LLCs. That was something I wanted us to get into, because that is genius. I told you that you were mentioning it to me. I was like, That is smart. So I think we need to do a whole other episode just about that.
Yeah, and using private money and hard money together.
Right.
It's it's a lot, but thank you guys so much for
Thank
Absolutely.
you, Tradition and Betsy, for having us. It was a pleasure.
here. It was amazing for all of our listeners, viewers. Just their handles are shown here at joseph.lopez.investor. And then for Ida is aide.multifamily.investor. Follow them on Instagram. If you guys have questions, feel free to send them a DM on Instagram. They're also on Facebook as well. Sophia just said, please check your IG messages. Sophia is on it.
I know, she's on it.
Hey.
We appreciate you for being so active in our chat as well. And for all our viewers, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to right. Let's see what I should tell them. I need to get used to saying that.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. You guys have been so supportive. We've been feeling the love, and we just want to put out there, like, we're learning too, and we learn as we go, and we try to teach as we go as well. I mean, we get all these calls all the time about asking about things that now we're like, oh my gosh, that was such an easy question.
Or we can always connect them. Just say, hey, we know the perfect person to help.
Exactly.
It's a whole value add experience. But no, thank you guys a lot. Thank you for everyone watching, listening. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. If you like this episode, give us a thumbs up, leave a review. And if not, see you guys next time, next week, Monday at 5 p.m., same time, same place here at Money Mondays with your host, Kels and Betzy. Bye, guys.
Bye.